Hi, this is John. I'm with American Enlightenment Podcast, and I've got Cam with me today.
Yep.
And we're going to be discussing your journey through life.
Great.
So Cam, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about you and your experiences and your journey through life.
Sure. Well, my name's Cameron. I'm born in Spokane, but grew up in Olympia. Went to Tumwater. Big sports guy growing up. Wrestled all through high school. Played hockey my whole life. Ended up playing professional hockey in my early 20s, all the way up until about 24. So, always played sports. Didn't discover doing music and things of that nature until probably around the age of 24 when I stopped doing sports. But that was also the same time I was getting pretty deep into partying and finding, other things to sustain what I thought was happiness at the time. And yeah, I am a father of 2 boys at this point. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. I'm married. Kind of been through all walks of life. Highs and lows. Very high highs, very low lows. So, yeah. I didn't take... Well, we'll just dip into... I didn't take a drink of alcohol or anything of that nature until my high school graduation party. So all through high school, I was a good student, just totally focused on sports. And the night that I went to my high school graduation party, that's when I found alcohol, and I fell in love with it. I blacked out for the most part, but I know the next morning I felt incredible. I couldn't wait to do it again. And, it snowballed pretty fast for me. I started partying. I stopped going to SBSCC at the time. Tried to stay with wrestling and some things of that nature and kept myself close to some programs. But I'd say it probably wasn't actually like... It just became a lifestyle, I did, started selling weed and things of that nature also, right around the age of 19. I always had a pretty good work ethic, and that kind of translated over to partying as well. So I wasn't the guy buying dime bags, I was the guy selling dime bags. It just made more sense to me.
Okay.
I built that thing up pretty quickly and got myself into some trouble in my hometown, in Tumwater. I was arrested in Tumwater when I was 19. I still had friends in high school that were my age. I graduated when I was 17, so we all smoked weed. I sold them all weed. I was just the guy. Never really thought that they were taking it to school and getting themselves in trouble and that it would kick back on me, but that was a pretty serious wake-up call that I didn't answer. I got myself a lawyer. I had a DUI the week before I got popped with all the weed that I got. I had quite a bit of weed on me. And hired a good enough lawyer that got me off both those charges, so I didn't learn my lesson. But I'd say I actually stayed pretty tame there for a while. I was still playing hockey. Had a girlfriend for like 6 years. Always had to sneak what I was doing around her if it wasn't, weed and drinking. But snuck a lot of ecstasy and Adderall and all the party drugs, all the recreational drugs. Adderall, though, that was probably one of my... It was a big gateway drug for me. Could really focus on it, party all night, and then take it and show up to work next day in the morning and just be absolutely on point and do that, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So kind of a super drug for me. Not until, I think it was end of 2010 or end of 2011. On a drive down to Eugene for a rap show when the rap thing was starting to kick off. I remember I'd stayed up the night before on Adderall, and I didn't have any more Adderall. And the people I was with just happened to be doing crystal meth. And I didn't know much about it. I actually probably knew zero about it. I got a quick lesson on what it was. Everybody in the car assured me, oh yeah, it's basically Adderall. It's basically the same thing. So I tried it. I don't know that I even noticed like any difference, but there's definitely like video footage of that night in our show, and it was a pretty wild show, and I was very energized, to say the least. And I didn't know though, not until I got home the next day, or we got home the next day. It was about a 4-hour drive. When everybody was taking off, I think at that moment, I wanted more. I was like, hey, let me get some more of that, and started kind of doing it on my own, figuring out ways to get it. I didn't do it every day in the beginning, but it took about 6 months for my life to completely collapse. Like, girlfriend found out, family found out, totaled my car, stopped paying my cell phone bill, stopped being a responsible person, and at least like keeping my word. And I was hooked. Once my dad found out in 2012, I think it was August. At that point, me and my girlfriend had already split up. She didn't want anything to do with that. And I didn't care. I just kind of let that drug take over. I kind of stopped drinking in that time, stopped eating, all sorts of things like that. It just became get high, make music, do shows, and it was fun. It honestly, it was fun for like the first 6 months. Even though everything around me was like unraveling, it didn't matter. I was getting those dopamine hits in my brain. I didn't know anything about it. I know a lot about it now, but that drug was giving my brain dopamine, which is joy and happiness. And then when I didn't have it, my brain would stop making it, and then it was no joy, no happiness. So it was easy to just say, hey, I just need to get high again and I'll be all right. And I did that for about 3.5 years until I had reestablished rock bottom countless times and made tons of promises. And I think at one point my dad and I didn't talk for a year. And I found out later that was the hardest year of his life. And I didn't get it at the time, but being a parent now and having 2 boys myself, I can only imagine what he was going through, not knowing where I was at, and not being able to do anything, just completely helpless because I wasn't ready. Even though I should have been ready on paper, I wasn't ready. So fortunately, divine intervention happened. Eventually you do run into the law with that drug, or with most drugs and that lifestyle and the hours that you keep. And I didn't even know it. I got arrested. I had stuff on me. I didn't even know. I actually got out of jail somewhat quick and never heard anything about it. And then about 6 months later, there was a warrant out for my arrest that I didn't know about. So I got picked up on that. And then about 6 months later, after going to court a whole bunch down in Cowlitz County, I was offered the drug court program in Thurston County since I lived up here. And I took it, and I signed that contract February 15th or 13th, one of the two, 2015. And that was the last day that I did methamphetamines. So that's about 10 years ago now.
Earlier you mentioned the Adderall. How did Adderall come into your life? I mean, it's usually something that it's prescribed for ADD, ADHD with kids.
Sure. For me, it was never prescribed to me, but I found it in the party scene, probably around the age of 18, 19. It was around the time I was doing ecstasy and stuff like that, and other, mushrooms and all the party drugs. But Adderall would give you the power to just work all day and be a pro at your job and drink all night, and then keep drinking till the wee hours in the morning, maybe get about 2-3 hours of sleep, and then wake up and do it again 6-7 days a week. So it was, I loved it. I loved being on it. Made nicotine better, made alcohol better. It just kind of enhanced things for me. Yeah, as far as the comparison between Adderall and meth, there's different levels to Adderall. There's, milligram levels and stuff like that, but there's a specific Adderall called XR, and they come in like a big tablet, 30 milligram, little balls, they're like time release balls. You take 3 or 4 of those, and I think you're higher than you are on meth, in my personal opinion. You can sleep after a day or two doing Adderall. Meth will keep you up for, anywhere from like a week to 2 weeks at a time. So, and it's withering, so it's hard to compare the two. I would say though, potential, like as far as strength, like, there is a certain level of Adderall that you can get pretty high up there as far as how high you are, definitely. So.
Okay. When you were a kid growing up I mean, everybody starts off in life like they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut. I mean, one day when you were, young boy, what did you want to do?
I always wanted to play sports, or even music. I did start playing guitars and stuff like that in high school. I idolized these kids that I grew up with that are some of my best friends today. They all played instruments and they were incredible, and I wanted to be a part of that. They let me play bass in a band and stuff like that. So there's always this. I loved playing hockey. I played hockey overseas. I've been to like 3 or 4 continents playing hockey. I always wanted to play baseball professionally, so I kept playing softball up until about a year ago, and still plan to play softball. So it's always been sports and music for me. As far as like what I studied and what I kind of what I enjoyed, and it's kind of what I do now. I liked architecture. I liked technical drawing and making house plans and stuff like that. I grew up around CNCs. My dad had a CNC, so I learned how to work a CNC and program it, things of that nature. I've always been good at numbers and math, but sports was always it for me. I always thought I'd end up playing sports, and I guess I did. I took it pretty far. So,
when you were young, you liked challenges.
Definitely.
And if it interests you, you were laser focused into it.
Definitely. And for wrestling, I had all over my room and above my door, I would put notes, state champion, things like that. Anything that like hooked my brain and got me motivated for a day, I would write it down on an index card, and I had it taped around my room somewhere.
Where did you learn that? Because a lot of people, a lot of motivational speakers and motivational programs actually, they'll talk about doing things like that.
Sure.
So did you pick that up from somewhere, or is
That's
that just
my dad?
Your dad?
Yeah, my dad was a professional speed skater, and he did like distance. He did like, I don't even know, 10,000 meters, things like that, like a straight sprint on skates. So he would visualize, and he taught me how to visualize, like winning and seeing it, and that carried over into wrestling and hockey for me, for sure. And I still use visualization techniques to this day, 100%.
Okay. So when you were younger, did anybody diagnose you with ADD or ADHD or anything, or did you just know?
It was a common thing. I would sit in my the parent-teacher conferences, and you would sit there next to your, my dad, and I think 4th grade through 6th grade, all of them said that to my dad, like, your son should get tested for ADD, he has ADHD, this and that. And that would tick my dad off. Like, he would basically say, no, you're just not doing your job. So it was kind of like, I definitely never got tested. And he was a coach, so he worked with kids that their parents would come up to them and say, hey, I want to get him into hockey. I think it'd be good for him. He's got ADD. He's got ADHD. And, my dad would just get pissed at that. And he said, no, you got to find something he's interested in, plug him into that, and let him loose. And so there was a lot of kids that came his way. Hockey was that weird thing. It was almost kind of like the Mighty Ducks. It was like the troubled kids that would like, oh, let's put him in roller hockey and see what he can do. And my dad could get the best out of kids, even the ones labeled ADD and ADHD. So, I was never tested. I think that's true today too. If you find something you're interested in, that's an avenue to focus on. I'm not discrediting ADD or ADHD. I'm sure there's something to do with it. But yeah, a 30 milligram Adderall XR in the hands of a child. I don't know if that's that's pretty extreme measures. I've done them, and they're a lot. So
So you're going through your former years, you get exposed to Adderall,
sure.
okay? And then you're like, wow, this is like, all of a sudden, this is like the whole new realm, whole new universe for me. Even though you caught off the party scene,
Yeah,
but it plugged in where it made a difference for you,
definitely.
okay? With your experiences after that, when you started to get into alcohol and crystal meth and that kind of thing, and you said that you fell in love with alcohol, okay? And that's really, I've never had it said to me that way before. I fell in love with it.
Yeah,
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? I mean,
sure. I was younger than everybody in my class, so I always, hung out with kids younger than me outside of school. Like when I was a senior, most of my friends were juniors and sophomores, stuff like that. I just didn't get along with those kids in my grade. Kind of shy, just forced into situations where I wasn't mature enough. I wasn't ready for middle school when middle school came, and I wasn't ready for high school when high school came.
okay.
So when I found alcohol and went from scared to talk to girls to walking up to girls and trying to lay one on their mouth, at a party, no fear
Yeah.
at all, and getting away with it, I was like, this is pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like, it took, it's that liquid courage, and it was what I needed to elevate into what I thought was, what I was.
It lifted barriers for you, the restraints.
Sure.
And so you started liking the new you
Yeah.
in the inebriated state,
Yep.
okay? And then you said there was time periods where you had 6 months time periods where crystal meth came into the picture,
Sure.
and then things started falling apart, but you didn't care
Yeah.
because you're having too much fun.
In a sense. Yeah. I mean,
Cell phone bills not getting paid.
yeah.
Thing,
need it.
A 6-year girlfriend,
Yeah. Don't
so
need it.
she canceled the program,
Yep.
left, but yet the party continued.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. It had to. It just, that was all, that drug in particular, I don't know that alcohol took everything away from me or has ever taken away from me. It's taken my serenity away from me for sure, my peace of mind and how I feel, my thoughts in the morning when I wake up, it's taken away my clarity, and it's taken away my patience and my ability to be a kind human being and empathetic and sympathetic and 100% there as a father and 100% there as a husband, the whole 9 yards. Alcohol can do that, but doing meth was it's so withering and it happens so fast. Like it starts to eat away at your body, starts to eat away at your teeth. I am still paying. I was at the dentist yesterday for something that happened a long time ago, still getting everything fixed. I mean, thousands of dollars into my mouth to get my smile right. So yeah, it has to, when I say it has to continue, the party has to go on. It goes back to how dopamine works in that drug. It starts feeding your brain an overload of joy and interest and love for things and passion for things, even if it's stupid things. And you'll see it. You'll see people on the side of the road messing with bikes and digging through their bags and because that's all they have at that point. But it's like whatever they're doing once they get high, they're locked in on it. You'll see people with little projects posted up all around the town, all around America. So that's the dopamine though. It just once your brain has gotten used to that, I don't know exactly how long it takes, but it's pretty quick with meth. Once your brain gets that dose, your regular dopamine level and your ability to create it is not significant enough. And the only way you're going to get back is chasing that high. So that's what I mean by it has to keep going, or else you really feel like you are depleted, life has no purpose, anxiety goes through the roof when you try and get off of that drug. It is pretty terrifying, honestly. Not a physical, it is a physical withdrawal, but it is a mental withdrawal that, like, I wish on nobody. I feel bad for people that have to go through that.
When the withdrawal happened with meth, can you describe it? You said anxiety.
Sure. Well,
So let's elaborate. Help me understand
yeah.
what a person, because there's so many Americans and so many different people throughout our country that have gotten themselves addicted
Yeah.
and that want out. But this is my opinion. There's not enough avenues for them to find help.
Sure.
And yet this country spends the most on healthcare than any country on the planet. But we rate, I do believe, 38th. So did you go on a journey to find help, or you just decided one day you were just going to do it on your own, or?
Well, there was in the end, what got me clean was Thurston County Drug Court. It's a program where you're calling in every single day to show up and take a UA. The program lasts for over a year for most people. That took me 14 months. And so for that 14 months, you're accountable to come in and take a UA, or you're going to jail. And if you have a dirty UA, you're going to jail, and all your charges come back. So whatever you've done in that drug court program, all your charges come back. My charges were a small possession charge. I was looking at maybe 6 months, which is shorter than drug court, but 6 months in jail is a nightmare. I went to jail several times for just short periods of time. In those times, coming off of meth in jail is absolutely awful. The whole situation's surreal. You're like literally become part of this freak show circus when you get put in jail. And you are. You're out there on a limb. And once it comes to the point that you start getting locked up, it's because you've stopped doing things in society that you need to do. You don't go get a driver's license. You don't have insurance. You don't obey the law. You most of the time will have drugs or paraphernalia on you. So you're a walking criminal. Whether you have bad intentions or not, you are being a criminal. So those times coming off of meth, there were several times, you just run out. You run out of steam, and you end up stuck wherever you're at. But I do remember when I was in the program, I had Thurston County Drug Court there, people there that, would talk me through it and walk me through it. I had a family that wanted to see me get clean, so that was a big factor. Even though my dad and I wrote each other off for about a year, at that point, I also had a son on the way, my first son. I got clean 2 weeks before he was born. So that is divine intervention at its finest. Birth of a child and drug court. But that first week, it took about a week. It took about 6 or 7 days until I had that moment and I snapped out of it and I went, whoa. But what it is it's, you put off everything when you're doing drugs, and your priority becomes the drugs. It becomes using. So you don't respond to people. You don't respond to life. You don't take care of anything that you need to take care of, and you slowly dig yourself a hole. And then once that drug is gone, it just opens the floodgates, and all that stuff comes back in. All the things that you thought you forgot about or put off to the side, they're still there, and then they come waving in like tidal waves, and it is intense. You don't want anything to do with anything. You're restless. You're exhausted. I tried to quit and keep a job, and I think I went in on like the third day of being clean. I was late. And I had a tantrum because I saw, and I'd completely unfolded. I remember getting out into the parking lot, trying to get to my car. I'd just gotten fired, and the world was spinning. Like, it literally felt like I couldn't walk a straight line. I was completely out of sorts. Sat in my car for hours. I had no idea what to do or where to go. And yeah, it's intense. That drug takes its toll on the body too. So you start feeling body pains and you're dehydrated. Most of the teeth issues that people have with using meth is from, or any drugs, is actually from dehydration. When you don't drink water and you're using a substance that's draining the water out of your body, your gums recede and your teeth get fragile and actually like fall out. So that is a thing. It's not even the drug, it's dehydration. It's caused from the drug.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So you decided to go on this journey. So this was 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Okay. So a decade. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Again. So 10 years ago, you decided to go on this journey. And what's your view? I mean, drug court helped you,
Yeah.
but sometimes for some folks, that's not enough. They need the brakes put on a little bit harder.
Sure.
What's your opinion of, like, say, for example, if people were caught with drugs and they're habitual offenders and they've tried of actually like a type of a forced rehab, like a rehab prison environment? It's similar programs are done on the East Coast in Europe with great success.
Okay.
It sounded like you were at a spot when this happened, and you mentioned divine intervention. I want to talk about that and go into that a little bit more. But in order to get a drug out of somebody's system, it's in the fat cells. The chemicals soak into everything. It takes a period of time for the body to release and get all the chemicals out.
Sure.
It takes 8-9 months minimum. How do you feel about like what's available to the common person out there? Not somebody who's privileged.
Sure.
That's going to go to some beautiful resort rehab clinic in Florida where they're working out. Right, I've seen those commercials.
Yeah.
They look like great places to go. But if you're sleeping in a tent or you're in a stolen car in the back seat in freezing cold, and all of a sudden you wake up one day and you want out, are there resources that the average person who's addicted on the streets can go find? Or, like I said, we spend the most on healthcare of any country on the planet.
Sure.
Our government, because Americans are generous, will send money overseas, but yet we don't do anything to retrieve people that have gotten caught in this loop of addiction.
Sure.
And what's your spin on that? You lived the life, so
I did, and I have. I would say it's a tough one. It's tough because you can't force anything on anybody. So the jail rehab, people are doing drugs in jail anyways somehow. People go to jail and start doing drugs. Currently, I've got almost a year off of alcohol. I'll have a year right at the turn of the new year, and that was something that was tough for me as well. And what I got is from advice from my former drug court counselor is he told me to go to a 12-step meeting, which is something they offered to us, or not offered to us. We had to go to 12-step meetings, either for alcohol or for drugs. Mm-hmm. And we had to go to those meetings, and I loved it when I was in drug court. I liked going to it. I had a few that I would go to, and when I got out of drug court, I stopped going and I started drinking again. So in the last year, when I finally took his advice, that's where I found what I needed. But I was ready to quit. I was fed up. And the resources there, it's free. It's open to anybody. Those 12-step meetings are all around Olympia as well. Those I've seen work miracles in people's lives. People at the lowest and people at the highest. They call it high bottom drunks, low bottom drunks, things like that. People that take it all the way down, to living on the streets. And then there's people that are, CEOs of companies that just have addiction issues. And those programs, those can help. As far as um, getting, I mean, like I said, you just have to be ready. I still have people in my life that drink or use drugs, and until they're ready, that's the defining factor on if somebody's going to have a successful shot at getting off drugs or getting off alcohol. Because like the drug court thing, it got me off drugs. It got me off meth. It got me away from meth long enough to go, you know what? I don't ever want to go back to that. But I did go back to alcohol. I did need a mind-changing substance, or felt like I needed it, because I wasn't ready to be done partying. So
Mm-hmm.
um, access to those, I mean, those are everywhere. I go to meetings all across America. I work construction that travels through America, and um, I've been to meetings in several states, and those are good. Those are things that teach you how to live clean and live sober.
For what I do for a living, I've dealt with homeless issues, seen people at homeless camps. One time was a family with a father and mother, three kids living in an SUV at a homeless camp. Mom and dad horribly addicted to drugs. Uh, the vehicle, I mean, it was on the verge of totally having a catastrophic failure, and they couldn't go anywhere. The cleanup crew was there to clean up the camp, and they had nowhere to go. They had no resources. That's the key thing, no resources. Um, this is an American tragedy. It's also a worldwide tragedy. You have heavy methamphetamine usage in Australia, Canada. Okay. Again, how we approach it and how other countries approach it probably differ, but at the same point in time, let's say you are a strong individual. You're athletic. You come from a strong background of wanting to accept challenges. That's what I've heard from this conversation.
Yeah.
And you seem like a person, you got into something, you fell in love with alcohol, you all of a sudden there was this new thing, and yet you probably have ADD or ADHD situation going on, but not diagnosed. But what you're describing is you're laser focused on something. When you get laser focused, you're laser focused on it.
Yeah.
And because it's a challenge. And the next thing, like the thing with alcohol and the governors coming off and being able to talk to to women, and that's an addictive thing all unto itself. Every man on the planet will probably testify to that. That's it's in that game. All Captain Courageous Liquid Courage right here. Okay, but you decided to accept the challenge of becoming clean and sober. Okay, and it went in stages. For first, you got off meth.
Yeah.
Okay, and then but you still needed something, and this is your own words.
Yep.
And alcohol was back in the scene,
Yep.
right? And then you decided eventually, in the long run, I didn't want this in my life anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's interfering with things.
Yep.
That's what alcohol did for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I went through my own journey with it as well. But for yourself, for people that can't put the brakes on, right now as it stands, I mean, what I see in America, I see people, being on the West Coast, you see people sleeping outside. You see people under underpasses. It's freezing cold. They're dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see people overdosing. Fentanyl is a game changer, in my opinion. Is the Satan crept into America with a new tool? And you talked about divine intervention.
Mm-hmm.
So, why don't you elaborate on divine intervention? Because those are some powerful words you said.
I had a decision to either go to jail or do a program. So I chose a program, and then I had my son being born around the same time, which was, I guess when I say divine intervention, it's like that's when you start maybe thinking about a power greater than yourself, and some things at work that, like, if I that there are some good things out there for me. But I'll go into just my decision recently back in December to quit alcohol. You know, I have a great career job, takes care of my wife and kids. If you knew me in softball, you'd think I was just a happy-go-lucky softball guy. If you knew me from playing golf, you'd think, you know, like, wow, this guy just likes to go out and have fun and play golf. If you knew me from hockey, you know, you're like, wow, this guy likes to have a couple beers and get after it. But noticing things, noticing trends, having these glimpses of, wow, my son is 9 now, and he's starting to pay attention to things, and I could see it. I could see it affecting his personality. I could see. I'd notice it when I'd walk into a room. He'd be free spirited, totally himself, and when I would walk into the room, it was kind of shut down a little bit. Walking on eggshells. And that, I saw that happen pretty heavily from about Thanksgiving to Christmas last year, when I had quite a bit of time off because of the holidays, and the drinking amplified. And I just woke up one morning and I knew I was done with it. I knew I had to be done with it. I saw where it was going. I saw it, you know, potentially destroying my child's life, and my marriage, and something in me, you know, I've never been able to quit anything on my own. So something within me, something greater than me, tapped me on the shoulder and told me I had had enough and I needed to seek help. And that's the big word, is help. I think that's kind of what you're getting at too. You're saying resources, but help. These people need help. I needed help. I found help in a 12-step program. Was able to maintain my job, and now I've elevated myself at that job in the past year. They see it. I lost weight. I'm healthier. I thought I was diabetic a year ago. I thought I was falling apart. So divine intervention is at that point when you, for me, it was when I decided to stop fighting. Stop with this, oh, you're either just going to be a drunk and, you know, you drink, and that's, I used to say, what did I say? I can't remember what I was saying. It was stupid. It was work hard, play hard, don't be too hard on yourself. That's what it was. And I made that up to justify my drinking, because I worked hard, so I get to play hard. And then those mornings where I felt like shit, I was like, don't be too hard on yourself. And I lived that way for a while, but eventually I was very hard on myself, to the point that I couldn't carry it anymore, and I knew I couldn't quit on my own. I needed help. I needed the help in the form of just, you know, a human being understanding what I needed to get through, where I was at. I'm here. This is what's going on, and I needed them to say, "Hey, you're all right. We're gonna get you here." You know, so that's divine intervention for me, is giving up the fight, saying I need help, and accepting it, surrendering. So,
And through your travels with this, and one of the things for me, I mean, God's came into my life at a couple of different points. Okay. The divine intervention, it definitely sounds like you believe in God.
I believe in a power greater than myself, for sure.
Yeah.
I believe
And that's the only way you got out of that.
it is.
Okay.
1,000%.
Yeah. It was the only way my daughter got out of opiate addiction.
Nice.
Yeah, so she was one of the Oxycontin victims. And that's what I call them, Oxycontin victims. So you're a strong-willed person, and you delve in and get laser focused. And it's like you're a very courageous individual. Okay.
Thanks.
Not many people will get up out of bed and say, today I'm getting clean and sober, and I'm going to go to a 12-step program. They need to go into like isolation. I have a friend of mine. She just recently went into rehab for alcohol. She was told by a physician that she's in her early 30s, that by the time she hits 45, she's dead. If you met her and you looked at her, she looks vibrant. beautiful, alive, animated, a very attractive looking woman, yet she's dying. She's an alcohol, and one of the things you talked about, the reversal on your health. I'm
Yeah.
very big about like the body being balanced, and when you introduce chemicals
Yeah.
into the system, whether it's alcohol or it's a bag of orange colored garbage
Sure.
and some red colored drink, and you're giving it to a kid, and then next thing the kid about 2 hours later is jumping out the car windows, freaking out, and they're all over the place. Chemicals, putting any chemicals in the human body and altering the balance of the mind, and you delved into you experimented with it and delved into it.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't break off that. That takes a very strong mind to do that. For myself, alcohol, there was a few triggers for me. I mean, I was a binge drinking alcoholic. I would undergo stress or something would set me off. I wasn't a daily drinker. I wasn't a blackout drinker. I was, the party guy. And, if you're wanting to get a good conversation going, give me some Cabernet. When I turned type 2 diabetic, that was my rum and Coke era. And I got off that. And then I just swapped over to Cabernet. And then Captain Cabernet hit the scene. One thing you said, and this is touched like personally with me, you would wake up in the mornings and you would feel terrible. And I would wake up in the mornings, I'd feel terrible. My judgments were cloudy. I couldn't, like for business wise, I couldn't, think clearly and make decisive decisions. I was just kind of like, ugh, the whole day. And I just popped up and I'm like, you know what? This is boring. And one of the things you said, you fell in love with it because it is exciting. You're drinking, oh wow, I met a gal last night, da da da, that kind of thing. Or, I had a great time, hey, it was a wonderful experience. And then you're feeling crappy for a day or two afterwards,
Sure.
right? And you promise yourself you're never going to do that again. And then next weekend hits, and guess what?
Yeah.
Because you're on the go so much you don't get to have fun. It's an amusement ride in a bottle.
Yeah.
It really is. And you have nothing but respect for me. You just popped up one morning and just said, I'm done with this and I'm done with that. And a lot of people can't do that.
Yeah.
It just, they can, but they need to be where it's out of their system. Too many people can rehab at home. Or for you as a 12-step, I've heard the words divine intervention used numerous times. I have another friend of mine, she's turning 29 here pretty quick, and she's got 4 children, and she was a fentanyl addict, and she was a totally different person. She's regained custody of all her children. She leads a very God-fearing life. She's very Christian. She introduced me back into going to church, and I owe her a huge debt for that. At the same point in time, you are correct. Divine intervention does have a hand in it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not somebody believes in a higher power, whether or not somebody goes with the route of I believe in Christ or whatever route they're going with, but I think we can probably both agree that meth and alcohol can be serious tools of evil to destroy people's lives. I've seen it.
Oh yeah.
So, and it's sad.
Yeah.
And we could walk out this front door right now and probably go find, probably in this immediate vicinity, I'd say probably between 20 and 30 people wandering the streets. And these are Americans, and these are unseen Americans. And when you pull up, what I mean by unseen Americans, we're running a series on this right now where these are folks, you pull up to get off the freeway and they're standing there holding a piece of cardboard.
Sure.
The street term's flying a kite, okay? And they're starving and they've got no resources and nothing because everything was consumed, just like you talked about the 6-month like amusement ride you went on, the cell phone bills are not getting paid, the rent's not getting paid.
Yeah.
In their cases, that's, what I'm talking about, and things of that nature. But the thing is, they didn't decide to jump off.
Yeah.
They're still going with it. And these are the folks that are outside. I mean, I do believe the temperature outside today is probably in the 40s. Tonight, I do believe it's probably going to be in the 30s, and they're sleeping outside.
It's wild.
Yeah, but nobody cares. There's, say, for example, you can watch the nightly news, and let's say there's a hurricane or a tsunami or whatever kind of natural disaster across the water or in whatever countries, and there's a fund set up and people will start donating.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the same point in time, our country spends the most on healthcare than any country on the planet. Okay. And again, I'll reiterate, we rank 38th.
Wow.
And we allow people to stay outdoors. And that's what, it's not a socialist thing. It's common sense, and it's having touch with humanity. Americans are big-hearted. The thing is, you did this on your own, and you're an exception to the rule. A lot of people can't.
And God. I had God with me.
Yeah. And you said divine intervention.
My higher power. There's definitely something helping me out.
And there was a couple of wake-up calls for you. One was your son being born.
Yeah.
And that's a father's instinct to want more and better for his children than he had. That's a strong instinct. I know, because I have 4 children.
Yeah.
I mean, there was sometimes I was working 15, 20 hours a day. I want to make sure they had the best of the best and make sure they were fed. Everything was prim and proper, and they had the best I could provide.
Sure.
But at the same point in time, I worked myself to death, and that was the rum and coke era.
Yeah.
And it was nothing, more than sometimes, having 5 doubles. I couldn't imagine doing something like that right now. I'd get up and leave.
Yeah.
And do something stupid, get in a motorized vehicle.
Yeah.
And think I was okay.
Yeah.
And
it does that.
Yeah. Well, that was stupidity.
Oh yeah.
So my wake-up call was one day, I went to the doctors and they go, well, congratulations, you're type 2 diabetic. And I'm like, well, how did this happen?
Sugar.
And all it basically boiled down to is I had pounded my pancreas into overproduction of insulin.
Yeah.
And that's where my journey into alternative medicine started. Again, when we approach rehab programs here in America versus how they do them in other countries, they focus more on a scientific, because you're dealing with the mind.
Yeah.
You're dealing biochemically with the body. Okay. And you also have to factor in what substances the individual was using, the drugs of choice.
Yeah.
And again, I think that because you're strong-willed, you had divine intervention, and you're an athlete, and you like challenges. It was you'd had enough. It was time to jump off the roller coaster, and it was a challenge to you personally because you wanted more, a better life for your family. Yeah. And it was a dead-end road being on methamphetamine. Yeah. It has one conclusion.
Yeah.
Death.
Yep.
Is there anything more? I mean, you can tell me about your journey, or
Well, I mean, it's still going. It's a daily thing. The only thing I get when I wake up is a daily reprieve from, drinking or making bad decisions or setting out on. I got 2 choices in the morning. I have God's path. I think God's path is pretty self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm.
Doing well for others and treating people the way you want to be treated, not treating people the way you are treated, going out of your way to make a better life for people around you. And in the end, that's soul nourishing for yourself. So there's God's path. And then there's warpath. I wake up on warpath sometimes, and I need to correct it. And if I don't, I put myself in a lot of danger. Sober or not, I can go on tantrums, rage. It's all stems from fear of losing control, like I was in control of anything in the first place. But so there's that work that needs to be done. before I go to bed and when I wake up. And that's what's gotten me almost a year off alcohol. And it's what I look forward to. I actually do, it's become a thing, meditation and prayer. And you're talking to a guy that was probably, I don't know if I'd call it agnostic or atheist, but it was somewhere in there where I definitely didn't want to hear somebody give credit to God or anything after you score a touchdown. I don't want to hear it, man. You're a badass quarterback. Like stop with the I got to give it. But I get it. It's giving thanks and staying in that thankful. That's all it is. You're just staying grateful. You're staying in a awareness of good things are happening for me right now because I'm working on trying to better things in my situation in my life and make it better for my wife and my kids, the people that have to work with me and work around me. So the moment I stop doing that, it could all collapse. But, it helps you to deal with challenges too. Like if you're in that grateful mindset and you're aware bad things are still going to happen, there's things that are out of your control, but it's knowing the difference. Like, okay, that's out of my control. I'm not going to worry about that. I'll deal with it, but I'm going to deal with it as level-headed as I can. And you cannot do that when you're doing drugs and alcohol. You just can't. Not in a way that's sustainable.
No.
Not in my opinion. Prove me wrong, but I've never seen a drug movie end well. Scarface didn't end well. Like those stories don't end like, oh yeah, he did drugs and he bettered himself and look at where he's at now. Good thing he started doing drugs. No, it never ends well. So
Everyone I knew, this is coming from the perspective of being in the 80s, okay, that was a commodities broker, a drug dealer, and was living the flashy life, the Corvette, all the gals,
probably
right?
having a blast.
Yeah, because they were having a blast, right? But again, you said divine intervention, so I would bring up the other kind of intervention with evil.
Yeah.
Okay, and I actually watched a few people like this. They were living up pretty good, lots of money. I mean, huge houses, women coming and going. Basically, evil is using them to destroy other people's lives, give them all the resources they need, and then when they crash hard. Prison. I mean, dead.
Yeah.
I knew one guy I went to school with. And I just found out about this a couple of years ago. He was made to kneel on his knees and he was shot in the back of the head in a restaurant. He was executed.
Jeez.
My prediction is that has something to do with probably some commodities exchange that went wrong.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to happen. That's an evil lifestyle seems to surround that.
Oh yeah.
And all the people that I knew that were all through this time period, none of them retained what they got. It destroyed their lives, destroyed everybody around them. And then people broke off of it. And then I know one friend in particular, at one point, she, her boyfriend had gotten themselves addicted, and they disassembled a car and sold it on eBay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd stolen it, and they stole from a family member. So evil, comes into people's lives. It works. God works with, you said, divine intervention. Evil does the same thing. It does it through drugs. It can do it through, in corruption through money. I mean, look at how many politicians and people of power that for a $10,000 bribe, they'll
Make you take the COVID vaccine.
well, that and things like that, or they'll allow some permits to go through, and the next thing you know, they're facing federal prison.
Yeah.
Okay. there's there's a lot, I mean, and sometimes the scale of justice are a little a little wobbly in my opinion.
Yeah.
But for people that have addiction issues, Americans right here, people are outside that we can go talk to right now, alcohol, meth, fentanyl, whatever. Okay. They're sleeping on the streets and they can't seem to break the cycle. I think society, I mean, we're not doing our any Americans that are living in this situation any favors.
Yeah.
And the reason why I asked you as much as I did, because I wanted to get your perspective about like what resources there are. And 12-step programs are wonderful,
Sure.
but for a lot of people, but the thing is, you're a different breed of person. You were raised as an athlete,
Yeah.
and somebody who it takes on challenges. Sometimes you're dealing with people who came out of households where there was abuse,
Yep.
traumatic events, things of that nature, and they don't have the mental resources, and then they've got the addiction after, and it falls hand in hand, and now they're stuck in a loop.
Yeah.
So after this interview, I'm hearing my words and hearing your own words. What would you like to see come out of this, and by telling your story? Because it's inspirational that you did what you did. It was courageous.
Mm-hmm.
Not many people could pull it off. People have. There's plenty of people out there that did, but it's not the norm. And I mean, from what we've seen,
Yeah.
and we've interviewed a lot of people.
Well, like I said, I only have it for today, and then I got to work on it again tomorrow. So I think that's important. I am not cured. I still wake up. I still have meth dreams. I still wake up craving alcohol. I used to love I don't know if I loved it, but I would get off work on a Friday and I was drinking every awake moment until I went to bed on Sunday and then had to wake up and go to work on Monday. And in the past, there were times that I kept the drinking going even at work, not at the job I'm at now, thankfully. But, um, you know, the job that I have now, I get a lot more time off, which that's what triggered this whole getting clean and sober or getting sober was having 2 weeks off around Christmas time and realizing I was drunk from the time that I walked out of work on Friday. Um, anyways, as far as how and why and what we can do, it all starts at the top. We touched a little bit on just Adderall's made in a factory. It's prescribed by a doctor. Oxycontin's made in a factory. It's prescribed by a doctor. Um, you know, there's got to be some accountability in that industry that what we're being sold and what we're being told to do. Because when you go to the doctor, you know, you just think, hey, this is my medication. I've been prescribed this. The doctor told me to take this. You trust them, and I don't know that you can anymore. Not right now. I'm hoping.
I feel like age and growth has been a lot of your like I've watched you personally go from uh, being a certain way and looking at your issue a certain way
Yeah.
to you maturing into a older grown person and looking at everything so much different. Like good example, when you went to treatment back in the day, and the treatment center was telling you you don't have a drug problem, you just need to talk to a counselor, and you
Yeah.
took that and were like, well, cool, I don't have a drug problem,
Yeah.
right? So like, in knowing you now, if you would have gone to that same meeting, just how much you matured,
Sure.
you would have known what she was saying. But back then, I felt like it was your way of saying, see,
My justification.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say justifications in that world are mostly fibs from people and things that they believe that keep them feeling okay about doing what they're doing. A lot of people lie about being abused or molested or tragic things. There's a lot of that in that world. I think it naturally comes with it. But as far as an age thing, I think becoming a father, that's that's probably the difference. You know, being responsible for another human being. You know, you were responsible in the sense for how that human being turns out. You know, so at a certain point, you start reading things differently. It's so hard. I have the ability, and I think most people, if they really, you got to look at every case and every situation differently. There's no, I mean, in a sense, they're all similar. You know, most addiction stems from trauma or fear or not fitting in. You know, something from what's like, you know. So you know, there is a lot of similarities, but man, as far as what's going to bring you to wanting to get out of the loop and wanting to get you know, it's one thing to want to get out of it when you're drunk or when you're high and say, man, I'm done with this. I'm quitting tomorrow. And take a hit, take a drink. Then you wake up the next day and you're like, fuck, I'm not ready. That's tough. Um, I don't want to say you got to get lucky, but you gotta surrender.
Gotta be
That's
ready.
you gotta say, you know what? I'm done. Sorry, Toby. I'm not
Yeah.
coming to your New Year's party. I got 4 days off booze. This is the most I've had in 3 years. I'm not coming. I don't care if it's New Year's or not. I'm staying in. And, you know, for me, the obsession for drinking was probably lifted about 6 months into being sober. Like it was every day I wanted to drink for 6 months and thinking about it. And I'd say in the last 6 months, not so much. Maybe here and there, you know. You battle it right off the bat. First thing I say is, well, can't get fucking drunk today, so what can I do? And then try and do it.
If you could go back in time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give?
Um, well, I can't, but I don't know. I think I went through everything I had to because I had to. Um, and as tough as that is to say, um, you know, I wish I didn't go down some of the certain avenues that I did, but I did, and because of that, I know about it. I can put myself in people's shoes. I'm lucky to make it out the way I did. I don't recommend it. I'm not going to tell any of my sons anything like that. Like, no, it's cool. Go ahead, try it all. That's not it. But I am. I do think about how I am going to talk to my kids when they're 18. Probably more than I would talk to myself at 18. Um, and it's a tough one. I haven't figured out how I'm going to deal with that. If I'm going to, you know, let it happen or be the strict guy that says, not in my house. You know, you can go out there if you're going to do it. It's tough. I don't know that there's a right way to do it or a wrong way to do it. I guess the best thing is just to not worry, um, and keep your keep your faith. You know that eventually people are going to come to the conclusion that they need to and pick the path they're going to take, and um, you know, accept your blessings. So that's all I got.
So you said there was physical changes that happened after stopping alcohol.
Great physical changes that happened. My blood pressure dropped. I had 172 or something ridiculous when I went in one time. They were asked me if I needed it, if I felt dizzy, if I needed, and it was a normal morning for me. I didn't even drink coffee or energy drinks or anything. That was my resting blood pressure. That was my body fighting to push blood through my body. I had psoriasis everywhere. My head would break out. I had, you know, bad skin. If I woke up in the middle of the night, I could not go back to sleep. I'd be extremely angry and kicking and fighting and just stressed out and laying there in bed. Now I sleep better. My blood pressure is perfect. My skin cleared up. I lost weight, healthy weight. My bones don't hurt anymore. My knees don't hurt. I could go run if I wanted to right now, and I'm not even in running shape. I could do it though. Um, just, yeah. And not being hungover, waking up with a clear head. That's, don't take that for granted. That is a beautiful thing. Being hungover is like easily comparable to like the worst I've ever had the flu. And that was a daily thing I did. Like if I got the flu right now, I would turn into a whining, crying little, like, I wouldn't enjoy it. But that's how every morning was. It was fighting through, taking a shower, hot shower, and trying to do all this stuff to feel okay. And don't talk to me until noon. Don't talk to me until I've had a nap. Don't talk to me until I've had a drink. It's not there anymore. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Cam, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure meeting you, and this was good for me as well.
Great.
I appreciate that. That's divine intervention. For me, it's divine intervention, you showing up.
Great.
Hi, I'm John. This is American Enlightenment. You just watched the podcast here, and thank you for your time.